September 14, 1945. A Guardian reporter holds a pocket-sized booklet stamped Geheim, secret, 104 pages, 2,820 names in alphabetical order: Winston Churchill, Virginia Woolf, Noel Coward, Charles de Gaulle, each name followed by a number, the Reich Security Office that would handle their arrest. This is the Sonderfahndungsliste G.B, the Special Search List, Great Britain. 5 years after Hitler's planned invasion, the world discovers the Gestapo's hit list for Britain. But here's what nobody tells you about finding Nazi Germany's most wanted list. Only 2 original copies survived the war. One sits in the Imperial War Museum in London. Another lives in the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, numbered 354 Doors, bearing a handwritten note: Gestapo arrest list for England. The rest, 20,000 copies printed, stored in Berlin warehouses, obliterated by Allied bombing raids. The survival of these documents wasn't planned. It was accident. July 2nd, 1940. Hitler gives his first tentative orders regarding a possible invasion of Britain. Wehrmacht generals present their plan on July 13th. They're so confident of success, they believe Britain will be occupied within a month. July 16th, Hitler issues Führer Directive No. 16, preparation for a landing operation against England, codename Seelöwe, Sea Lion. As England, despite her hopeless military situation, still shows no signs of willingness to come to terms, I have decided to prepare, and if necessary to carry out, a landing operation against her. Walter Schellenberg sits in an Allied prison cell, 1949, SS Oberfuhrer, former head of Nazi foreign intelligence. In his memoirs, he claims credit for compiling the list. End of June 1940, he writes, "The rapid German victories had led to the fall of France. Dunkirk evacuation completed by June 4th. British forces withdrawn from continental Europe. Nazi spearhead reached the French coast on May 21st. Only then did the prospect of invading Britain surface with Hitler. The German High Command issued no invasion orders until July 2nd. The list starts with 2 parts. First, 2,619 suspects with full addresses. Second, nearly 400 organizations marked for immediate shutdown. Churches, universities, newspaper offices, Masonic lodges, the entire infrastructure of British resistance, catalogued for systematic destruction. Each name carries its death warrant. All persons listed in the Special Wanted, List G.B, are to be arrested. No exceptions, no appeals, no mercy. If you value documented wartime intelligence history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Imperial War Museum's 1989 facsimile reprint of the original Reichssicherheitshauptamt document and Walter Schellenberg's authenticated memoirs published by Harper and Brothers in 1956, alongside Franz Six's Nuremberg trial testimony from the Einsatzgruppen proceedings of 1948. These aren't generic references. They're the primary sources that survived the war's chaos. Now back to the information. September 17th, 1940. The same day Hitler indefinitely postponed Operation Sea Lion. That morning, RAF Fighter Command had repelled another massive Luftwaffe assault, inflicting severe losses that were becoming unsustainable for the Germans. That afternoon, Reinhard Heydrich issued new orders to SS Oberfuhrer Franz Six. The 31-year-old professor of political science at Berlin University would no longer plan the occupation of Britain. Instead, he would prepare death squads for Russia. But Six's British assignment reveals the true horror that awaited invaded Britain. Six was tasked with creating 6 Einsatzgruppen to operate from major urban centers: London, Birmingham, Bristol, Liverpool, Manchester, and Edinburgh. These weren't police units. They were death squads. The same methodology that had murdered thousands of Polish intellectuals would target British resistance leaders, refugees, and Jews. The Black Book provided the target list. The Einsatzgruppen would provide the bullets. Franz Six earned his doctorate in philosophy from Heidelberg University in 1934. Financial difficulties had forced him to interrupt studies periodically to earn money. By 1936, he held a professorship in journalism at Königsberg University. By 1939, he chaired foreign political science at Berlin University and served as the faculty's first dean. Academic success met ideological commitment when he joined the Nazi Party in 1930, with membership number 245,670. Heydrich appointed Six head of Amt 7, Written Records, of the Reich Security Main Office. This department dealt with ideological tasks and publications, creating anti-Semitic propaganda, monitoring public opinion, overseeing Nazi indoctrination programs. Six held this position until 1943. His academic credentials impressed Nazi leadership. They needed intellectuals to plan genocide efficiently. Six proved they had chosen well. The Informationsheft G.B. Information Booklet. Great Britain arrives in Berlin. 144 pages of encyclopedic intelligence. Maps covering every topographical detail. 174 photographs, mostly aerial reconnaissance mixed with newspaper clippings. Military geographical data. British police organization charts. Intelligence agency breakdowns. Museum locations for systematic looting. 7 complete maps of the British Isles. Everything an occupying army needs to dismantle a civilization. Inside this handbook sits the appendix, the Black Book. 104 pages that would determine who lived and who died in Nazi Britain. The Sonderfahndungsliste G.B. wasn't just a list, it was a blueprint for selective terror. Each name researched, each address verified, each person's threat level calculated by the Reich Security Main Office under Reinhard Heydrich's direct supervision. Operation Sea Lion demanded unprecedented planning precision. 250,000 German troops, 60,000 horses, nearly 35,000 vehicles. Embarkation from occupied French and Belgian ports, landing in 3 waves on a 200-mile front from Weymouth in the west to Dover in the east. Over 2,000 Rhine River barges, tugs, and vessels assembled for the operation. Most required modification with steel and concrete reinforcement and landing ramps. The naval challenge was enormous. Grand Admiral Erich Raeder, commander of the Kriegsmarine, recognized that Germany had neither attempted nor trained for major amphibious assault. Suitable landing craft simply didn't exist. The German Navy had suffered heavily in the Norway campaign. Only 1 heavy cruiser available, the Hipper, 3 light cruisers, 9 destroyers, all other major warships damaged or not yet commissioned. The Royal Navy remained overwhelmingly powerful, but the air war would decide everything. Hitler's directive set 4 conditions for invasion. The RAF must be beaten down in morale and fact, unable to display appreciable aggressive force against German crossing. The English Channel must be swept of British mines at crossing points. The Strait of Dover must be blocked at both ends by German mines. Coastal artillery must dominate the Dover Straits. Only Luftwaffe victory could guarantee these conditions. Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe, responded with skepticism. A combined operation having the objective of landing in England must be rejected. It could only be the final act of an already victorious war against Britain. The preconditions for success simply didn't exist. Air supremacy over the Channel remained uncertain. Royal Navy intervention threatened catastrophic loss of invasion forces. Weather conditions in late summer 1940 proved unusually unfavorable for flying operations. Schellenberg's teams worked methodically on intelligence preparation. Pro-Nazi Germans living in Britain provided information. British fascist sympathizers supplied addresses. University records tracked down refugee professors. Newspaper archives identified anti-Nazi journalists. Passport visa applications revealed recent arrivals from occupied Europe. The net closed slowly, then all at once. By summer 1940, the Gestapo knew where to find Britain's most dangerous minds. Winston Churchill tops the list. Political, former First Lord of the Admiralty. Destination, Amt Six Foreign Intelligence. The man who warned about Nazi expansion for years would face special interrogation. But Churchill wasn't alone at the top tier. The list reads like Britain's intellectual roll call. Neville Chamberlain, marked political, former Prime Minister, Clement Attlee, Anthony Eden. Harold Macmillan, the entire war cabinet, catalogued for immediate detention. Writers faced systematic targeting. E. M. Forster, author. Virginia Woolf, woman writer. J. B. Priestley, creator of anti-Nazi broadcasts. Aldous Huxley, already fled to America, but still marked for arrest. H. G. Wells. The Nazis feared British intellectual influence more than British military power. Ideas could survive bombs. Words could cross borders. Minds could inspire resistance. Jewish refugees triggered special attention. Names followed by Jude in brackets. Otto Schiff, Frankfurt banker who established the Jewish Refugees Committee. 80% of UK refugees registered through his organization by 1939. Norman Bentwich, former Attorney General of Palestine, leading Zionist rescue efforts. Chaim Weizmann. The Gestapo understood that Britain's refugee community held Germany's most determined enemies. The list revealed Nazi intelligence gaps. Lytton Strachey, dead since 1932, still marked for arrest. Paul Robeson, returned to America in 1939. Address listed as London. George Bernard Shaw, mysteriously absent despite being one of few English writers published in Nazi Germany. The omnipotent Gestapo made elementary errors about people they planned to kill. Organizations faced systematic shutdown. The Boy Scouts, Church of England leadership, private public schools, trade unions, every institution that could organize resistance. The handbook described the Church of England as nothing but a tool of empire power politics. Roman Catholicism fared no better. Catholic priests marked for arrest. Catholic Youth League dissolved. Religious teaching banned. Heinrich Himmler's SS would control all remaining spiritual life. Freemasons drew particular hatred. Lodge locations mapped. Membership rolls targeted. The Nazi obsession with secret societies focused on Masonic networks across Britain. Every lodge would be raided on invasion day. Members arrested. Records confiscated. The ancient brotherhood would vanish in a single coordinated strike across the British Isles. The list's geographic precision revealed extensive surveillance. Addresses down to street numbers, suburban locations, rural hideouts, safe houses. The Gestapo had spent years mapping Britain's intellectual underground. German postgraduates studying at British universities provided detailed campus intelligence. Embassy staff tracked prominent refugees. Travel visa applications created comprehensive databases of recent arrivals fleeing Nazi occupation. Anti-fascist organizations faced total elimination. The Left Book Club, Communist Party headquarters, Labour Party offices, Independent MP Eleanor Rathbone, crusader for refugee assistance, Josiah Wedgwood, Labour's most vocal advocate for German Jews, Victor Cazalet, conservative who broke party lines to oppose Nazi appeasement. Political resistance would be decapitated within hours of invasion. Scientists and intellectuals couldn't escape classification: J, B, S, Haldane, geneticist and evolutionary biologist with communist sympathies, prominent academic refugees who'd fled Austria and Czechoslovakia. The brain drain from Nazi Europe had concentrated in Britain's universities. Now those same minds would face arrest in their adopted homeland. Knowledge itself had become treason. The entertainment industry provided easy targets. Noel Coward, high-profile actor with MI5 connections. Vic Oliver, Austrian Jewish comedian married to Churchill's daughter, listed as Jewish actor. The Nazis understood that popular culture shaped public opinion. Eliminating Britain's comedians and entertainers would silence voices that mocked Nazi pretensions and maintained British morale through humor. Artists faced systematic persecution. Jacob Epstein, sculptor, Oskar Kokoschka, refugee expressionist painter. The cultural purge would parallel Nazi actions across occupied Europe. Degenerate art eliminated, modern expressions banned, only approved propaganda would survive. Britain's artistic heritage would be stripped, shipped to Germany, or destroyed in place. Religious leaders beyond Christianity faced targeting. The handbook identified Jewish community leaders, refugee rabbis, synagogue locations. The Final Solution's British chapter was already planned. Lists within lists, categories within categories. The machinery of genocide, prepositioned for immediate activation. But the list revealed something else: Nazi expectations of collaboration. Lord Rothermere, Daily Mail owner, noted as friendly towards Germany. The Anglo-German Fellowship's members conspicuously absent from arrest lists. Nancy Astor only added after cooling toward von Ribbentrop. The Gestapo believed significant British collaboration was possible. They planned to exploit existing fascist sympathies and class divisions. Ukrainian experts in Britain drew special notation as potential collaborators. Anti-Bolshevik sentiment made them promising allies against Soviet expansion. Arthur Edwards, director of National Museums of Scotland, praised for consistent German sympathy. The occupation wouldn't rely solely on terror. It would divide and rule, turning Britons against each other through carefully cultivated existing divisions. Intelligence professionals topped priority lists. Dick Ellis, British intelligence officer, allegedly provided much Black Book information as a German mole. The Venlo incident of November 1939, when Schellenberg captured 2 senior British agents, had given Nazi intelligence unprecedented access to MI6 personnel files. Britain's spy networks were compromised before invasion began. The handbook analyzed British character with clinical precision. British willingness to spy for their country praised. Separation between patriotism and morality noted with approval. The feudal public school system identified as producing compliant leadership. The Gestapo understood British psychology better than most Britons did. Class consciousness would become occupation strategy. Regional resistance received detailed analysis. Scotland's independence movement monitored. Welsh nationalism tracked. Irish Republican Army connections mapped. Northern Ireland's sectarian divisions catalogued for exploitation. The United Kingdom's internal fractures provided occupation opportunities. Divide the nations, conquer the peoples. Standard Nazi methodology applied to British circumstances. Press control meant immediate action. BBC headquarters marked for takeover. Major newspaper offices identified for shutdown. Independent journalists targeted for arrest. The information war would begin before military occupation ended. British voices silenced. German propaganda amplified. Truth itself would become the first casualty of successful invasion. Economic targets revealed Nazi priorities. City of London financial networks mapped. Industrial leadership identified. Trade union organizers marked for elimination. Britain's economic elite faced a choice: collaborate or disappear. The occupation would preserve productive capacity while eliminating resistance leadership. Standard operating procedure from Austria through Poland through France. The list's errors exposed Nazi ignorance alongside intelligence, addresses years out of date, people long dead. Refugees relocated to safer countries. The omniscient Gestapo operated on incomplete information, outdated assumptions, and bureaucratic incompetence. Their terror machine was efficient, but not infallible. Critical gaps existed in their knowledge of British society. Medical and scientific communities faced systematic targeting, hospitals identified for control, university laboratories mapped for looting, medical research relocated to Germany, scientific equipment confiscated. Britain's intellectual infrastructure would be stripped, relocated, or destroyed. Knowledge was power. Power threatened Nazi control. Therefore, knowledge must be eliminated or captured. Franz Six's true assignment went beyond the Black Book. His Six Einsatzgruppen would implement Heinrich Himmler's private plan, not just eliminating resistance leaders, not just deporting able-bodied men to continental slave labor camps, not just relocating scientific equipment to Germany. Six's real job was organizing the systematic murder of 80% of Britain's population. Women kept as breeders to produce a subrace of low-value workers. Beautiful English countryside preserved for Nazi vacation resorts. The Einsatzgruppen methodology was proven. Poland had provided the testing ground. September 1939 through spring 1940, 60,000 to 80,000 executions attributed to 7 Einsatzgruppen units. Synagogues burned. Random violence against Jewish civilians. Over 500 Jews killed in Benzin within 2 days. The same commanders would direct British operations. The same methods would ensure British compliance. Heinz Jost had commanded Einsatzgruppe Wien during the Sudetenland annexation. Franz Walter Stahlecker led Einsatzgruppe Dresden. Both would later direct mass murder operations in the Soviet Union. The intellectual architects of genocide, tested in Czechoslovakia, perfected in Poland, scheduled for Britain. Academic credentials masked murderous intent. University degrees enabled efficient killing. British Einsatzgruppen would operate differently than Polish precedents. Britain's higher education levels required more sophisticated approach. Refugee intellectuals possessed international connections, demanding immediate neutralization. Jewish community organizations needed systematic dismantlement. Resistance networks required careful identification before elimination. The Black Book provided targeting intelligence. The Einsatzgruppen provided execution capability. Six's academic background prepared him for intellectual genocide. His journalism studies at Heidelberg University taught him media manipulation techniques. His professorship at Königsberg University provided experience managing academic institutions. His position as press director for German Students' Association demonstrated organizational skills. His chair in foreign political science at Berlin University offered international perspective. Education enabled elimination, but invasion never came. August 10th, 1940. RAF Fighter Command fought the Luftwaffe to a standstill through summer 1940. Battle of Britain raged over southern England. German losses mounted unsustainably. September 15th, Fighter Command repelled another massive Luftwaffe assault. Severe losses convinced Hitler that air superiority was impossible. September to 17th. Operation Sea Lion postponed indefinitely. The handbook proved useless. The lists became historical curiosities. 20,000 copies printed for an invasion that never happened. The most comprehensive occupation plan in military history. Defeated by young men in Spitfires and Hurricanes flying desperate sorties over southern England, the few defeated the many. Democratic pilots defeated totalitarian planning. Yet Nazi planning continued. Updated intelligence flowed in, new names added, old addresses corrected. The Black Book remained current through 1941, 1942, even 1943. Hope died slowly in Nazi intelligence circles. Britain remained tantalizingly close. 21 miles of water, so near, yet impossibly distant after the RAF's victory in British skies. The warehouse fire that destroyed 18,000 copies wasn't Allied strategic bombing. It was accidental destruction during general raids on Berlin's industrial districts. The Gestapo's masterpiece survived in only 2 confirmed copies. 3 possibly. If Stanford's numbered copy, 354, isn't a duplicate of London's Imperial War Museum original, bureaucratic precision met random destruction. Franz Six received his consolation assignment. June 20th, 1941, Chief of Vorkommando Moscow, a unit of Einsatzgruppe B in the Soviet Union. Six's academic credentials served genocide efficiently. His unit reported liquidating 144 persons. Specific notation. The Vorkommando Moscow was forced to execute another 46 persons, amongst them 38 intellectual Jews who had tried to create unrest and discontent in the newly established ghetto of Smolensk. Heinrich Himmler promoted Six to SS Oberfuhrer on November 9th, 1941. Exceptional service in the Einsatz operations. Final promotion to SS Brigade Führer on January 31st, 1945. Academic achievement enabled administrative murder. University degrees masked genocidal efficiency. Education served elimination through bureaucratic precision. Discovery came accidentally. September 14, 1945. Allied investigators searching Berlin's Reich Security Main Office headquarters find filing cabinets intact. Documents survived in basement storage. The Black Book emerges from Nazi administrative debris. Guardian reporter examines the evidence. The story breaks. Britain learns how close systematic terror came to its shores. Reactions revealed British character. Lady Astor. Complete answer to the terrible lie that the Cliveden set was pro-fascist. Lord Van Sittert. The German blacklist might indicate to some that their views were somewhat misplaced. David Lowe, cartoonist. That is all right. I had them on my list too. Being targeted by Nazis became a badge of honor. Rebecca West sent Noel Coward a telegram. My dear, the people we should have been seen dead with. Black humor met blacklists. British understatement confronted Nazi precision. The threatened became the heroes. The hunters became the hunted. History's judgment reversed Nazi classifications. Their enemies list became Britain's honor roll. The survival of these documents transformed their purpose. What began as administrative terrorism became historical evidence. Persecution plans evolved into educational resources. Terror documentation served democratic understanding. The accidental preservation enabled intentional instruction. Academic inquiry defeated ideological indoctrination through systematic study, but questions remained about complete survival statistics. How many other copies existed? Private collections might hold undiscovered examples. German veterans could possess personal copies. Allied soldiers might have taken souvenirs. Military intelligence might hold classified versions. The number 2 might be misleading. Hidden archives might yet reveal additional examples. Authentication became critical as Nazi memorabilia markets flourished post-war. Collectors sought historical documentation. Genuine documents commanded high prices. False documents satisfied demand where originals weren't available. Scholarly verification distinguished authentic Nazi planning from post-war fabrication. Academic scrutiny protected historical accuracy through established institutional procedures. The Imperial War Museum acquired its copy through standard document collection procedures. British forces recovered it from Reich Security Main Office archives. No dramatic discovery, no secret hiding place, just bureaucratic thoroughness, meeting systematic evidence collection. British librarians preserving German precision for historical study through professional archival standards. Stanford's Hoover Institution received its copy through Herbert Hoover's extensive document collection program. Hoover, having organized European food relief after World War I, understood documentation's historical importance. His collecting agents scoured defeated Germany for materials. The Black Book joined over 1 million volumes documenting war, revolution, and peace through systematic acquisition. Both surviving copies carried authentication stamps, Geheim classification, Reich Security Office markings, serial numbers, official Nazi documentation of unofficial terror plans, bureaucratic precision applied to systematic elimination schemes, the paperwork of genocide preserved by accident, studied by design, archived for posterity through institutional commitment. Facsimile publication began decades later. Imperial War Museum issued its 1989 reprint through the Department of Printed Books, 376 pages, including scholarly introduction explaining the Special Search List's origins. Academic analysis met Nazi documentation. Historical context surrounded bureaucratic terror. Education defeated indoctrination through systematic study. The list became research material for multiple disciplines. Historians studied Nazi methodology. Intelligence professionals analyzed occupation planning techniques. Sociologists examined targeted group classifications. Genealogists helped families trace refugee relatives. Academic inquiry transformed terror documentation into educational opportunity. Knowledge defeated ignorance through scholarly investigation. International comparison revealed systematic methodology across occupied territories. Poland's Sonderfundungslist targeted intellectual leadership. France's lists identified resistance organizers. Norway's documentation focused on government officials. Belgium's records emphasized economic leaders. Netherlands lists prioritized religious authorities. Terror required local adaptation within standardized frameworks across continental Europe. The methodology transferred seamlessly between countries, identify threats, classify dangers, document locations, plan operations, execute immediately upon invasion. Systematic persecution required administrative precision. Genocide needed bureaucratic efficiency. Evil operated through organized methodology, regardless of national boundaries or cultural differences. Contemporary implications demand careful consideration. Modern surveillance capabilities far exceed Nazi achievements. Digital tracking surpasses paper documentation. Computer databases contain more information than handwritten lists. Technological advancement serves both democratic transparency and authoritarian control depending on political application and institutional safeguards. Educational responsibility emerged from document survival. Museums displayed historical evidence. Universities integrated lessons into curricula. Archives preserved testimony for future generations. Accidental preservation became intentional instruction. Historical documentation served moral education through systematic public engagement and professional academic study. The Black Book's greatest lesson concerned resistance effectiveness. Nazi precision met democratic resilience. Bureaucratic planning confronted popular determination. Administrative terror faced social solidarity. The lists identified threats correctly, but underestimated threat effectiveness. Resistance succeeded because freedom fighters understood stakes better than oppressors, understood resistance through cultural and institutional knowledge. Major Graf von Kielmansegg of Germany's 1st Armored Division remembers the night of August 28, 1940. Dragged from a cinema near Orleans, France, told to report to his chief of staff immediately, he asked, "Are we on our way to England?" Response, "Yes, we're on our way, but not to England, to East Prussia, so then we knew Sea Lion was a dead duck." Hitler had decided to proceed with Operation Barbarossa instead. The decision sealed Nazi Germany's fate, invading Russia while Britain remained unconquered, fighting on two fronts, overextending military resources. The Black Book became historical artifact instead of operational document. British resistance would inspire European liberation rather than face systematic elimination. Democratic survival enabled totalitarian defeat through strategic miscalculation. Franz Six faced Allied justice at Nuremberg Einsatzgruppen trial, 1948. He admitted that executions of women and children was wrong, but claimed killing of male Jews was justified since they could bear arms. Cold rationalization of academic murder. University credentials masking genocidal logic. Six received 20 years imprisonment. Released early due to Cold War priorities. West Germany needed anti-communist expertise. Former Nazi intelligence officers became valuable assets. Post-war career proved Nazi rehabilitation possible. Six worked as advertising executive for Porsche after prison release. Significant salary. Comfortable retirement. The architect of British elimination plans lived peacefully until 1975. Academic credentials enabled post-war success just as they had enabled wartime genocide. Education served both evil and redemption depending on political circumstances. Walter Schellenberg died 1952 in Turin, Italy. His memoirs became historical evidence. The Hunter became the chronicled. His intelligence masterpiece became his condemnation. Plans for terror transformed into testimony of failure through scholarly documentation and legal proceedings. The list's survival changed everything. Academic study replaced Nazi application. Historical analysis defeated administrative terror. What began as systematic persecution plans became systematic educational opportunity. The Hunters' documentation became the Hunted's vindication. Evil's bureaucratic precision served good scholarly investigation through archival preservation and academic analysis spanning multiple generations. Sybil Oldfield opens a facsimile copy in 2020, half German, half English historian at University of Sussex. Her grandmother faced Nazi Schreibverbot, writing prohibition, during Hitler's dictatorship. Her mother was classified as enemy alien naturalized by marriage when war broke out. Personal history met historical documentation. Family experience confronted bureaucratic terror through scholarly investigation spanning 3 generations of academic commitment. Oldfield's research revealed hidden patterns across the Black Book's pages. More than half the targeted individuals were naturalized refugees. Britain's most gifted inhabitants came from Hitler's enemies list: writers, humanitarians, religious leaders, scientists, artists, social reformers. The cream of European intellectual society fled to Britain, marked for elimination by their former homeland. Cultural exile met planned cultural extinction through systematic documentation. The book that emerged, the Black Book, The Britons on the Nazi Hit List, published 2020 by Profile Books, transformed Nazi terror documentation into democratic celebration. 437 pages honoring those marked for death. Academic investigation became memorial celebration. Scholarly research transformed persecution plans into posthumous recognition of heroic resistance through professional historical analysis. Every name told a story of resistance worth Nazi elimination. Virginia Woolf, modernist writer exploring consciousness and time. Her stream of consciousness novels challenged conventional narrative structures. Her feminist essays attacked patriarchal assumptions underlying social organization. Her intellectual independence threatened Nazi thought control systems. Creative freedom became political resistance through artistic expression, challenging authoritarian orthodoxy, E.M. Forster faced targeting for multiple dangerous characteristics. Homosexuality, though hidden, violated Nazi sexual orthodoxy. Liberal humanism opposed fascist brutality directly. Connection to Bloomsbury Group linked him to intellectual resistance networks. His novels celebrated individual conscience over state authority. Personal freedom met political oppression in Nazi classification systems designed to eliminate democratic individualism. Refugee scientists comprised the list's most dangerous category from Nazi perspective. Nuclear physicists who would later develop atomic weapons. Medical researchers advancing human understanding through scientific method. Chemical engineers improving industrial processes through technical innovation. Mathematical theorists expanding knowledge boundaries beyond ideological constraints. The brain drain from Nazi Europe concentrated in Britain, then faced elimination plans by their former homeland. Religious targeting revealed Nazi spiritual control plans beyond political domination. Church of England bishops marked for immediate arrest. Catholic priests scheduled for detention. Jewish rabbis identified for deportation. Quaker pacifists labeled as resistance organizers. Methodist social reformers classified as political threats. Faith became treason under Nazi occupation planning, requiring systematic elimination. Children's advocates drew special attention from Nazi planners. Eleanor Rathbone, independent MP crusading for refugee assistance and child welfare. Marjorie Fry, prison reformer and women's education advocate. Dorothy Buxton, international children's relief organizer. The Nazis understood that protecting children meant preserving hope for future resistance. Hope threatened despair-based control systems requiring systematic elimination. Artists faced cultural elimination as dangerous as political resistance. Jacob Epstein's sculptures challenged conventional representation through modernist innovation. His Jewish identity compounded artistic crimes against Nazi aesthetic orthodoxy. Oskar Kokoschka's expressionism violated Nazi cultural standards completely. His refugee status added political transgression to artistic rebellion. Creative innovation met cultural reaction through systematic persecution plans. Entertainment figures couldn't escape classification despite seeming harmlessness. Noel Coward's sophisticated comedies mocked authority through wit and satire. His patriotic songs during wartime boosted British morale effectively. Popular culture became a political weapon through mass communication. Laughter defeated fear through artistic resistance. Therefore, laughter must be eliminated through performer detention and media control. The Duke of Windsor's conspicuous absence spoke volumes about Nazi collaboration expectations. Former King Edward VIII abdicated in 1936, lived in Portuguese exile. Schellenberg had personally attempted recruiting him through Operation Willy in 1940. Portuguese pressure campaign included death threats against Wallace Simpson, bribery attempts targeting Portuguese officials. The operation failed, but collaboration remained possible. Hence, no black book listing, despite royal status. Nazi intelligence sources proved extensive yet fundamentally flawed in critical areas. British fascist sympathizers provided addresses years out of date. German students at British universities supplied campus information lacking current context. Embassy surveillance captured public figures while missing private resistance networks. Bureaucratic precision met practical ignorance in German intelligence gathering operations throughout the pre-war period. The Hoover Institution's copy 354 carried handwritten notations from decades of research. Previous researchers' marginalia marked especially significant names for further investigation. Academic investigation layered over Nazi documentation through multiple scholarly generations. Educational purpose, transforming administrative evil through intellectual analysis, spanning multiple decades of professional historical study. Modern accessibility changed historical impact dramatically through technological advancement. Forces War Records digitized the complete list with English translations for public access. Online searching enabled global research by family historians and academics. Family historians traced targeted relatives through digital databases. Academic researchers analyzed systematic patterns through statistical methodology. Democratic transparency had defeated bureaucratic secrecy through technological innovation. Digital preservation ensured permanent survival beyond physical document deterioration. High-resolution scanning captured every detail for future scholarship. Database searches cross-referenced multiple sources across archives. Statistical analysis revealed targeting patterns invisible to earlier researchers. Computer processing amplified human understanding through systematic data analysis. 21st century tools served 20th century testimony through technological advancement. But critical questions persist about missing copies and complete survival statistics. Private collections might contain undiscovered examples in family archives. German veterans, families could possess personal copies as war souvenirs. Allied soldiers might have retained documentation as historical memorabilia. Military intelligence agencies might hold classified versions in restricted archives. Complete survival statistics remain uncertain despite official acknowledgement of only 2 confirmed copies. Authentication challenges continued plaguing researchers and collectors throughout the post-war period. Nazi memorabilia markets encouraged forgery production for commercial purposes. Collectors sought historical documentation without proper verification capability. Academic standards required provenance documentation through institutional channels. Museum acquisition demanded expert authentication through scholarly committees. Scholarly credibility depended on source verification through established professional procedures. International comparison revealed systematic methodology across Nazi-occupied territories in Europe. Poland's Sonderfahndungsliste targeted intellectual leadership, including university professors and clergy. France's lists identified resistance organizers and government officials. Norway's documentation focused on political leaders and military officers. Belgium's records emphasized economic leaders and industrial managers. Netherlands' lists prioritized religious authorities and cultural figures. Terror required local adaptation within standardized frameworks. The methodology transferred seamlessly between different national contexts and cultural situations. Identify threats through intelligence gathering. Classify dangers according to ideological categories. Document locations through surveillance operations. Plan operations through administrative coordination. Execute immediately upon invasion through paramilitary units. Systematic persecution required administrative precision. Genocide needed bureaucratic efficiency. Evil operated through organized methodology, regardless of national boundaries. Contemporary implications demand careful consideration given modern surveillance capabilities. Current digital tracking systems far exceed Nazi documentation abilities. Computer databases contain more personal information than handwritten lists could accommodate. Government surveillance programs operate through electronic monitoring rather than paper files. Technological advancement serves both democratic transparency and authoritarian control depending on political application and institutional safeguards. Educational responsibility emerged from accidental document survival through Allied discovery operations. Museums displayed historical evidence for public education. Universities integrated lessons into academic curricula. Archives preserved testimony for future generations of researchers. Accidental preservation became intentional instruction through institutional commitment. Historical documentation served moral education through systematic public engagement. The Black Book's greatest lesson concerned effectiveness of democratic resistance against totalitarian planning. Nazi precision met democratic resilience through popular determination. Bureaucratic planning confronted grassroots resistance through social networks. Administrative terror faced community solidarity through cultural institutions. The lists identified genuine threats correctly, but underestimated democratic effectiveness. Resistance succeeded because freedom fighters understood stakes better than oppressors understood resistance. British reaction patterns revealed national character under existential threat. Understatement met Nazi overstatement through cultural confidence. Humor confronted horror through traditional British resilience. Dignity faced degradation through institutional strength. Being targeted became badge of honor rather than mark of shame. Democratic values transformed persecution symbols into resistance celebrations through cultural adaptation. Lady Astor's response epitomized British defiance against Nazi intimidation, complete answer to the terrible lie that the Cliveden set was pro-fascist. Personal vindication through Nazi condemnation rather than collaboration. Enemy recognition validated patriotic credentials publicly. Opposition confirmation proved loyalty effectiveness through documentary evidence. Persecution plans became political vindication through historical revelation. David Lowe's cartoonist response showed artistic courage against totalitarian threat. That is all right. I had them on my list too. Creative defiance through satirical retaliation. Artistic resistance meeting bureaucratic persecution through humor. Cultural weapons proving effective against political oppression. Democratic expression confronting authoritarian documentation through traditional British wit. Rebecca West's telegram captured literary spirit under Nazi threat. My dear, the people we should have been seen dead with. Intellectual solidarity through persecution, recognition rather than intimidation. cultural community confirmed through enemy identification, literary fellowship strengthened by Nazi targeting, creative networks validated through oppressive acknowledgement and mutual support. The Imperial War Museum's preservation ensured democratic memory through institutional responsibility, public institution, safeguarding historical evidence for educational purposes, cultural mission, protecting democratic values through archival stewardship, academic responsibility, preserving freedom's testimony through professional standards, educational stewardship, serving social understanding through systematic archival maintenance, spanning multiple generations of scholarship. Stanford's Hoover Institution continued Herbert Hoover's documentation mission through private philanthropy, humanitarian experience, inspiring historical preservation through systematic collecting, relief work, motivating archival collection across multiple conflicts, international understanding requiring documentary evidence for scholarly research, academic research, serving public education through private institutional commitment, creating permanent educational resources. Scholarly publication democratized access to historical evidence for broader public understanding. Academic presses, serving educational democracy through accessible publishing. University research, reaching popular audiences beyond academic circles. Historical documentation, becoming democratic instruction through public engagement. Professional investigation, creating citizen understanding through accessible publication, serving educational democracy and public awareness. Modern researchers benefit from Nazi administrative precision in unexpected ways. Systematic documentation enabled comprehensive historical analysis, impossible without bureaucratic thoroughness. Administrative obsession created research opportunities for contemporary scholars. Authoritarian methodology served democratic education through archival survival. Academic investigation transforming evil documentation into educational good through scholarly interpretation and public instruction. The lists became memorial testimony, honoring resistance rather than facilitating persecution. Names marked for death transformed into honor rolls celebrating democratic values. Persecution plans evolved into recognition ceremonies for freedom fighters. Terror documentation served celebration purposes through historical reinterpretation. Administrative evil created educational good through historical preservation and scholarly interpretation spanning multiple academic generations. Regional analysis revealed sophisticated Nazi targeting strategies beyond simple political opposition. London concentrations reflected cultural and political importance to British civilization. University towns showed intellectual threats requiring immediate neutralization. Industrial centers indicated economic dangers to German occupation plans. Port cities suggested communication concerns for continental control. Rural estates marked aristocratic collaboration possibilities. Geographic distribution displayed strategic thinking within systematic persecution planning. Professional categorization demonstrated Nazi understanding of democratic society's foundation structures. Writers threatened thought control through independent intellectual expression. Scientists endangered Nazi technical monopoly through research advancement. Religious leaders challenged spiritual authority through moral teaching. Artists opposed cultural orthodoxy through creative expression. Politicians resisted administrative compliance through democratic governance. Social reformers promoted dangerous change through humanitarian activism. Intellectual freedom required systematic elimination through bureaucratic precision. The handbook's survival, alongside the lists, provided crucial operational context missing from lists alone. Infrastructure targeting accompanied personnel. Elimination in comprehensive occupation planning. Organizational shutdown paralleled individual arrests through systematic coordination. Democratic dismantlement needed detailed preparation through administrative thoroughness. Freedom's elimination demanded bureaucratic precision through systematic documentation and operational planning. But Nazi plans revealed fundamental misunderstanding of British society's complexity. British class consciousness was more nuanced than German analysis suggested. Regional loyalties ran deeper than foreign intelligence indicated through surveillance. Religious commitment proved stronger than Nazi surveillance revealed through observation. Democratic tradition exceeded authoritarian comprehension through cultural resilience. Social complexity defied systematic classification through bureaucratic methodology. The Black Book's accidental survival became intentional warning for future generations. Historical preservation served contemporary democratic vigilance against authoritarian threats. Academic study supported political freedom through systematic analysis. Educational responsibility emerged from archival accident through scholarly commitment. Investigation protected democracy through systematic analysis of authoritarian methodology and democratic resistance patterns. Forces War Records transformed academic research into public engagement through digital accessibility. Complete list digitization with English translations enabled global family research. Online databases connected scattered information across multiple archives. Statistical analysis revealed patterns invisible to earlier researchers working with physical documents. Democratic technology defeating totalitarian secrecy through systematic digitization and public access. Genealogical research revealed personal stories behind bureaucratic classification systems. Family historians traced targeted relatives through multiple generations of persecution. Refugee descendants discovered ancestors, black book listings through online searches. Personal narratives emerged from administrative documentation through individual investigation. Human stories defeating bureaucratic dehumanization through family memory and historical research. Museum exhibitions brought abstract historical concepts into public consciousness through visual presentation. Imperial War Museum displays contextualizing Nazi documentation for contemporary audiences. Educational programs connecting historical lessons to modern democratic challenges. Public engagement transforming academic research into civic education. Historical artifacts serving moral instruction through systematic museum programming. University curricula integrated black book lessons into multiple academic disciplines. History departments analyzing Nazi methodology through primary source research. Political science courses examining authoritarian planning through case study analysis. Sociology programs studying targeted group classification through statistical methodology. International relations classes exploring intelligence operations through historical comparison. Academic integration serving democratic education through scholarly instruction. Archive preservation ensured permanent access for future researchers and educators. Climate-controlled storage protecting physical documents from deterioration. Digital backups safeguarding information against technological obsolescence. Professional cataloging enabling systematic research across multiple databases. Institutional commitment preserving freedom's testimony through systematic archival stewardship spanning multiple generations. Contemporary surveillance debates gained historical perspective through Nazi documentation comparison. Modern digital tracking capabilities exceeding historical paper-based systems. Government monitoring programs operating through electronic rather than manual surveillance. Democratic oversight mechanisms protecting against authoritarian abuse through institutional safeguards. Historical lessons informing contemporary policy through comparative analysis. Intelligence community analysis revealed operational insights from Nazi planning methodology. Target identification systems comparing historical and contemporary approaches. Classification schemes analyzing ideological versus practical considerations. Operational planning examining invasion preparation through historical case study. Professional intelligence study serving democratic security through historical understanding. Academic conferences examined black book implications for multiple scholarly disciplines. Historians analyzing Nazi methodology through primary source documentation. Political scientists examining authoritarian planning through theoretical frameworks. Sociologists studying persecution patterns through quantitative analysis. Psychologists investigating perpetrator motivation through behavioral analysis. Interdisciplinary research serving democratic understanding through scholarly collaboration. International human rights organizations cited black book evidence in contemporary advocacy work. Historical documentation supporting modern protection efforts through legal precedent. Academic research informing policy recommendations through scholarly analysis. Educational programs raising awareness about persecution patterns through historical comparison. Advocacy organizations using historical lessons for contemporary human rights protection. Documentary films brought black book stories to popular audiences beyond academic circles. Television programming reaching mass audiences through visual storytelling. Streaming platforms enabling global access to historical education. Popular media transforming academic research into public engagement. Entertainment industry serving educational democracy through historical dramatization. Literary analysis examined targeted writers' contributions to democratic culture and resistance literature. Virginia Woolf's modernist innovations challenging authoritarian narrative control. E.M. Forster's humanistic values opposing fascist dehumanization. J.B. Priestley's populist broadcasts inspiring democratic resistance. Cultural criticism revealing intellectual threats to totalitarian control through artistic analysis. Scientific community recognition honored refugee researchers. Contributions to Allied victory efforts. Nuclear physicists developing atomic weapons, ending Nazi threat. Medical researchers advancing battlefield treatment, saving Allied lives. Engineers improving military technology through technical innovation. Mathematical theorists enabling code-breaking operations through analytical advancement. Scientific collaboration defeating totalitarian research through international cooperation. Religious studies programs examined spiritual resistance against totalitarian ideology through theological analysis. Christian opposition to Nazi racial theories through doctrinal teaching. Jewish community organization despite persecution through religious solidarity. Quaker pacifism challenging militaristic authoritarianism through spiritual witness, interfaith cooperation resisting ideological division through shared values, religious freedom defending democratic pluralism through spiritual commitment. Women's studies research highlighted gender dimensions of Nazi targeting strategies, female intellectuals facing double persecution through sexist and political classification, refugee women organizing resistance networks through community leadership, feminist activists challenging patriarchal authoritarianism through social reform, women's organizations providing mutual support through institutional cooperation, gender analysis revealing persecution, complexity through intersectional study. Migration studies examined refugee experiences through historical and contemporary comparison. Jewish displacement from Nazi Europe paralleling modern refugee crises. Intellectual exile, creating brain drain from authoritarian societies. Cultural preservation through displaced communities maintaining traditions. Integration challenges facing persecuted populations and democratic societies. Refugee resilience, demonstrating human dignity through historical continuity. Final revelation emerges from comprehensive analysis of Nazi documentation. The lists identified genuine threats to fascist authority through accurate threat assessment. Writers promoting independent thought through intellectual expression. Scientists expanding human knowledge through research advancement. Religious leaders defending spiritual freedom through moral teaching. Artists celebrating creative expression through cultural innovation. Social reformers advancing human dignity through humanitarian activism. Politicians protecting democratic governance through institutional leadership. Dangerous because they believed in human potential against ideological limitation. Dangerous because they defended individual dignity against collective subordination. Dangerous because they promoted social justice against systematic oppression. Dangerous because they preserved cultural heritage against ideological conformity. Dangerous because they advanced scientific understanding against doctrinal restriction. Dangerous because they embodied freedom's promise against totalitarian control. The warehouse fire that destroyed 18,000 copies couldn't eliminate what mattered most fundamentally. The ideas those people represented through intellectual commitment, the values they defended through moral courage, the hope they inspired through personal example, the resistance they organized through social networks, the democracy they protected through institutional dedication, the freedom they preserved through courageous opposition to systematic tyranny. Berlin, May 1945. Red Army soldiers find filing cabinets in bombed headquarters amid urban destruction, documents scattered across rubble-strewn floors, mixing bureaucracy with warfare. Administrative precision meets military destruction through historical accident. Nazi documentation survives German defeat through random preservation, serving historical justice. The Black Book lives on through multiple formats and institutional commitments. Digital archives, preserving information permanently. University libraries, maintaining research access. Museum displays, educating public audiences. Academic courses, teaching historical lessons. Documentary films reaching popular audiences. Genealogical research, connecting family histories. Democratic vigilance protecting contemporary freedom through historical memory. 2 copies survived Nazi destruction. Millions learned the crucial lesson. Democracy's enemies revealed their systematic plans. Democracy's defenders preserved essential evidence. History's judgment vindicated the threatened individuals. Academic research celebrated the targeted heroes. Popular memory honored the hunted resistance fighters. The Black Book became freedom's honor roll through historical accident and scholarly intention. Terror plans transformed into educational opportunity through academic stewardship. Persecution documentation became freedom's testimony through historical preservation. Administrative evil served democratic good through accidental survival and intentional preservation. The hunters became the chronicled through scholarly investigation. Their documentation became their condemnation through legal proceedings. History reversed their classifications through moral judgment. The greatest victory wasn't military, but moral. Nazi precision couldn't capture British resilience. Bureaucratic planning couldn't predict democratic determination. Administrative terror couldn't destroy social solidarity. The lists identified threats accurately, but underestimated their effectiveness completely. Freedom proved stronger than fascism through cultural commitment and institutional dedication.